Hello there, I'm Flair, one of the designers of Imperial Diplomacy. Today we are doing the first part of my variant designing tutorial series. Today we will introduce you to Inkscape, the software I use to design almost all of my variants. We will do a deep dive in all the tools I usually use when designing, and some cool stuff that might be good to know. This will probably be quite a long video, and I'll try to remember to add timestamps in case you ever need to reference this video. So, to begin with, we will do some setup. I'm not quite sure what tabs you have on this side up here, but there's a couple ones that I use regularly enough that I think everyone should have in their toolbar. So layers and objects is very necessary, you'll see why later, but I would also add line and distribute, export, fill and stroke. I would add transform. Nothing in this one, I believe. Path effects is useful but quite advanced. Document properties is good to have, along with object properties. And these are the ones I use the most. You can order these any way you'd like to do. So these give you accessibility to a lot of stuff you will very commonly do while using Inkscape. So that's it for setup. Let's go over this piece of software and see what we can do. So to begin with, to navigate this window, we have select and drag, of course, with the left mouse button. Holding down the mouse key will pan for you. Okay. If you just scroll, you'll just scroll up and down on the page. So you need to hold Control to zoom in or out while you scroll on the wheel. Okay. You can also pan using the spacebar. So let's go over the tools on the left that I think are useful. So the first one here is, of course, the selector tool. It's very basic. If we have a rectangle which we have created, we can select it, and it will be highlighted in the hierarchy here in the layer structure. We'll be able to move it by dragging it, but we can also change the size of it with these arrows. If we press on the object, these arrows change and allow us to rotate the object. If we hold Alt, it snaps to certain angles, which is nice. If we hold Control while doing the resizing, it keeps the proportions, which is awesome. Another thing when you're in this mode is that you can tilt the objects. This is very useful when trying to apply reference images, but we'll reach that later during this video. The next tool, which we'll use, hold on, I'll just draw a line here real quick, is the node editor tool. So what makes Inkscape and the similar software very special is that there's no pixels in this. We're not coloring individual pixels, but we're rather building objects, which we can move and edit. And every object is built out of nodes. Nodes are points on the canvas, and the collection of these nodes decide how the object looks. For example, I can move this node and it will change the shape of this thing. As you can see though, there's also these handles, which also help change the shape. Very cool. You might also get like these sharp lines. We'll go over how to draw later, where you can da-da-da-da like this. There's a lot of stuff going on with the node tool. There's a lot of stuff you can do. I'll quickly like go through all of these options at the top. This first one is not that useful, but you can click it and it adds a node in the middle. You can also do this by double-clicking any point on the line. This is not that useful, not really needed. You can, if you click on a node and click delete, you delete it. Very simple. So one thing that is pretty cool though, if you have two nodes like this, you select both by holding down shift, and you want them to become the same node, you can click this button and they will merge. You also have this one, break path as selected nodes, which means that it will remove the line between the two nodes. Oh, that's not what I expected. Okay, never mind. I messed up. It's not that one. I don't know what that one does actually. Never mind. Anyways, this one is very useful. If you select two nodes, you want to connect them by line, you press this button. And if you want to delete the segment between two nodes, you press this one. Very simple. This button, let's begin with this one, smoothens a node or a path. It's not behaving like I wanted to. Anyways, okay, weird. Let's have a look at this one instead. If I want to sharpen this node, I can click that one, and it's not doing what I want. But basically, this should be able to make it from transform it from sharp corner to rough corner. You can also do it via these ones. For example, if you want a curve handle on these, you can add that like that, and you can all of a sudden make it cool. Okay, I think that's it for the node tool. It's very useful and it has quite a learning curve, but it's awesome for editing. Anyways, rectangle tool, very simple. It does what you'd expect. It draws a box. If you hold control, you can get a square. If you very nice. It's worth to notice that if you use the node tool here, you only have access to two corners, but you also have this little circle, which allows you to round the corners. Very cool. Next up is the circle. The circle has some stuff to go over. Okay, so this is a standard circle, okay? It has two nodes to decide the size, like that. If you hold control, it's a circle instead of an ellipse. But you also have this little circle here, which allows you to only get segments of the circle, which is awesome. There's a couple variations of this. If you select the Ellipse tool again, you can make it a slice, like this. Has its uses. You can also just remove the lines to the center, or you can set up a line like this, chord. So there's a lot of fun options, and if you want to transform it into a whole circle again, you click this button. Okay, cool. There's also the polygon tool, but it's a bit complex, then honestly just play around with it and you'll probably figure out how it works. Okay, so on to the two ways of drawing in Inkscape. We have the pen tool, which allows you to create individual nodes very easily. If you drag after you have clicked on a node, it allows you to get a handle down, and you double click to set the next point, or just single click actually. If you double click at any point in time, you finish the line. And now we have a lot of nodes here. We can delete that one if we want, and we can drag it around with the edit node tool as seen up here. Yep, very cool. So at this point, some of you may ask, how do I make colored objects? I don't know if the things you draw will just be lines or whatever. Might depend if you have used the software before or not. So how do I actually edit the color and such? The line, width and such. We go over to the fills and stroke menu. Let's begin with looking at stroke style. So in stroke style, we can decide a couple of things about our object. First one being the width. This is very useful. I usually use like 0.7 for borders for my diplomacy map. Dashes is pretty awesome. It allows you to do some really cool lines. For example, for the sea borders in Imperial Diplomacy, I think I used this setting to make a bunch of little squares. So that's pretty cool. The next thing that is actually really useful is these markers. This allows you to place arrowheads on your object, which is super neat for making order arrows, or an arrow to show a JDNC or something. Super useful. There's a couple other small things, but those you can play around with. So I mostly use this tool when I draw borders. At least when I use my mouse. Just small drags usually allows you to create some pretty nice lines, like that, for example. But there is also the pencil tool, which allows you to draw freehand, like you're probably used to. Here you can just hold down the mouse button and draw. And depending on your hand stability, this might be better or worse. That looks weird. That's because our... Why is that? It's because we have a fill. Okay. Oh my god, that's insane. What's going on? I have no clue what's going on with this object, but it's really whack. I probably have some weird setting on. Oh yes, I do. Okay, there we go. This is not helping. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's more normal. I had a weird setting on. So that allows you to draw very detailed lines, but it also spawns a lot of nodes, which might make your document a lot more laggy. When I first drew the Imperial Diplomacy map, I only used freehand, and it significantly affects my frame rate, because Inkscape is not super optimized. Let's say we want to draw a funny little shape and we want to change its colors and such. Let's say we just have a little blob here. We finish the shape by clicking on the endpoint. Awesome. So I want to make this thing green with a red border. There's two ways to edit color. The first one is using the bar below. If you click a color in this bar, you can also scroll it with your mouse wheel. You select the fill color, just like that. And if you want to change the color of the line instead, you need to shift click. Just like that. That's a very ugly green. Just like that. Okay, so here I have my very funny little object. But this is of course a set selection of colors and you might not be happy with, which is why we have the fill and stroke paint tabs. This is a just regular little color picker. So I'm quite happy with this red, but let's drop it a little bit. That's perfect. And we want to edit the green as well. I want to make it a bit less saturated. Look how saturated it is. Look at that. Awesome. This is not my proudest work. So this is super useful. So one thing that a lot of beginners to Inkscape have trouble with is, oh, I draw this line as a border and I edited the fill as something previously, which ends up giving something like this. Not perfect. So basically you can turn off the fill or stroke color if you want to by using this swatch. So if example, if I click this, I remove the fill, and if I shift click, I will remove the stroke. Very simple. Alright, we are approaching the end of the tools here. The next one is the text tool. The text tool is central to any variant. I will just write hello. So the stroke and fill still works for text. The fill determines what color the text is, and the stroke decides the outline of the letters, which is super useful if you want to make something pop a bit more. For example, if I want to make this a bit red, I could shift click that and we have a really funny hello. All the settings are up here. Here you can select what font you want. There's a lot of pre-installed ones on your computer, but there's also a lot of free fonts online which you can search up and try to use, which is super cool. You can select font size. This is really big compared to our borders, so we probably want to drop it to like a 6 or something. Now the stroke is too thick, but we can edit that. Let's make it 0.5, and it still says hello. Nice. Now this is better with next to our borders. Is there anything else here? Probably is. Yeah, you can. There is a bunch of little different settings here, which you can probably find out yourself. If you have questions, just ask me. Okay, sweet. The next thing is just the dropper tool. You will use it all the time. So let's say I want to change the color of this object. I want to change the line to be the same color as this fill. To do that, I will shift click. So shift click decides, picks the color for the stroke, while if you want to take this as the fill, you just left click. Very cool. Super useful tool. For the next tool is something we will very likely use when we are coloring in our regions of the map. So let's see, we have a line like that, just like a random border, and later we come in and we draw a border like this, and we have a final line coming in like this. Awesome. If we try to just bring in a fill here, it will not work properly. We would have to use the paint bucket instead. Before you ever use the paint bucket, I recommend playing around with the settings, because the usual settings are pretty crappy. I usually use either visible color or alpha for fill by. If you're gonna use alpha, you cannot have a background while you're filling, but alpha is also far more accurate and can color larger regions far more easily. Threshold, I recommend setting around 70 for your everyday use. If you're coloring larger regions, you might need to lower this to like around 40, because bigger regions, Inkscape struggles to color sometimes. The throws like shrink by, I recommend having like 10% of your border width should be pretty good, and then small gaps, close gaps should be small. Anyway, so that's all tools on this end, I believe. Let's jump over to our toolbar over here instead. We have a lot to cover still. So we have pretty much, we haven't really looked at the layer structure yet, but it's super useful to learn. Always when I make my variants, I set up a very distinct structure, and we'll go over that structure just at the end of this video. Which is also the layer structure that the bot uses, so I recommend using that one. So let's double click the name of this layer and rename it to borders. Let's say we want to create a different layer for the region fills. So we press this button over here. We drag it to be below the borders, because otherwise the fills look ugly. And we can use the paint bucket tool over here. Tada! And we place it into the correct layer. Okay, so the layer structure is very simple. Sometimes it's very nice to be able to group together elements. That way, when we move one, we move both. This I often use for units, for example. If I just quickly throw together a unit design over here. Let's say we have a unit like this. I probably want to group these two. So if I select both, either in the canvas or in the list here, I can then right click. I cannot. I can right click. Oh my god, why can't I right click? And press group. Now when I drag one, I drag both. Very good. So now we have a unit in our little tile here. Okay, so that's great. Sometimes it might be good to head up here and only show layers to make it easier to overview, but I often have it off. This page is done. There's a lot of like different settings here, like you can create gradients and so on if you want to. I usually don't. For example, if I want to have a gradient here, I technically could. I could have it go from a green to a red, for example, if I really want to. Very cool. But I think that's it for the fill and stroke. The line tool is amazing, and you will. Before I got to learn it, I struggled so much. It's a great tool. So I recommend having both these two off, not turned on, and relative to should be last selected. So what these do is it allows you to easily line up objects. So for example, let's say we have these three objects and we want them to all be have their edges on the same level. So I can select all of these and they will be moved relative to the last ones that we selected, in this case this little square. And then we can use these line up the right edges, for example. And we can center them. We can do it like that. We can line them up like this, and so on. So this tool is just very useful for lining up stuff, which is awesome. We also have distribute, which allows you to, I mostly use these two, which allows you to evenly space objects. There's the grid and circular tools too, but I don't use them super often. Basically what it allows you to do is, let's say you have a bunch of squares, and you want to organize them into rows. You could do it like that, and so on. You can set the spacing here. It's pretty neat. You can also, if you have a circle, use the circular tool to arrange them all on the circle. Pretty neat. I recommend playing around with it, yes. Okay, cool. I think that's it for the align and distribute. There's a lot of good stuff here. I recommend just playing around with it a bit. Get to know your tools, you know. Transform, I don't use that often because I often just do it on the canvas. But this allows you to, if, for example, you wanna do it in a very controlled manner. You wanna move this a certain number of millimeters to the right, for example. You can go in here and apply it, or you wanna scale this with exactly 150%. You could enter this here and drag it out. You can go in for exact rotations. Let's say I want to rotate this 42 degrees. I can do that. It's very nice. And this is just like skewing as well. And matrix I have never used, so I don't know, but this looks fun. Okay, cool. Very cool. Just has some pretty nice stuff in general. For exact edits. Export you will use to transform your vector file, your SVG file, into a PNG, which is the file you will send to Discord. So I either recommend doing either you can use document, in which case it makes the size of the export just barely fit all the objects into it, but there's also page, which exports the entire canvas. You can do selection too. For example, if you just want to select the object or two, you can select one and it allows you to just export that one. You can also do custom, where you can edit the size of the image and so on. Pretty neat. The main thing I'd worry about here is usually just using page, and I would increase the DPI quite a bit. For most of my maps, I tried to aim for having it at least like 4,000 pixels in the short direction. So here I could probably increase the DPI to 500. Yeah, somewhere around that, and get a very high resolution map. Very cool. Here you select, with this button you select the where you want the file to end up, and here you can select what format you want the image in. Document properties is super useful. I usually just use this page, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do here if you want to. The most important thing is just resizing the canvas. This can be done either by just entering values. I just expand my canvas. Or if I, for example, create a background at the start of my project, and I want this to be my entire canvas, I can select this button and it will change the canvas to just fit that object I just sent. So these are now outside of the canvas. If I export the image, these will not be included, which is super useful for like, for example, placing spare units outside of the map. Super cool. Lastly, there's object properties. I don't use this a lot. It's nice to have when setting up stuff for the bots, but we won't need to do that yet. Anyways, we are approaching the end of this video, I think. I will just shortly do a quick demo, I think, of some, like just a very simple small area of a map to get you all started with some techniques for map making. Alright, let's take a look at some very basic map design using Inkscape. I still have this colored background since before, and I recommend you making one. We can place it outside of the layer structure here, and I would recommend just renaming it into background. I often use the background as my sea, and I will probably continue doing so forever. So I will make a layer called references, which I will place at the top, and I've copied an image from the internet into my clipboard of the British Isles. We will make a very small map of the British Isles. So how do we do this? We of course need our region borders layer here, and what we will do is we will select either of the two drawing tools here, and we will start just like drawing the borders. This takes a little while, but it's a pretty relaxing process, and as said, I'm just clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, slowly getting this border down. You could also use a style where you just use straight lines. Oops, I need to give it a stroke by shift clicking a color. And I need to edit the stroke width. Oh, okay. First mistake here. And my reference image here is not transparent, and it's above my region. So I can actually use this little button up here to edit the opacity of my object. Awesome, now I can see it. It's a good idea to lock it too. Okay, we can continue tracing our borders here. I will quickly just trace the whole island, and I'll be back. Right, okay, so I have now traced the coastline of Britain here. I chose to not do Ireland, but that's gonna be fine. So we actually encountered a very classical problem here. I managed to accidentally make this into two objects, this part and this part. So there's of course a very easy way to fix this. If we select both objects by shift clicking and we zoom in on the two nodes that started up, we can connect them. You remember? Making them the same object, and we want to go to the top. I'm not sure where they actually were not connected. Okay, somewhere, but okay. That's a very easy way to just fix that. So we have the initial stuff down now. So after this, you probably wanna get down and draw some new borders for like the regions and such. Let's say we want a tile to be Wales. We can pick up the pen tool again and we can start working that shape. Very nice, very nice. Doesn't have to be too good here. Okay, so we have constructed our first tile. Wonderful. So what do we need to do after this? After we have traced from our reference and we have drawn all our tiles and such, we'll end up with a pretty cool map. At that point, we're ready to hide our reference images. Okay, so let's say I want to start coloring in some of these tiles. For example, I want to make Wales a green color. We will select our region fills layer, which should be on the a layer below the region borders. We will select the bucket and we will turn off the background since we're using fill by alpha. Then we click the area. It looks like I didn't fill, but remember, our fill is none and our stroke is black, since that's what we did before. So let's remove the stroke and let's find a nice green color in our list here. I will make it this green color. Now we have a colored tile. For the bot later, I always recommend renaming the tiles after what it's called. So in this case, Wales. Okay, cool. So we have created this tile now, and there's a bunch of different elements that we probably want to add to this tile. The first thing we probably want to add is region names, a new layer. We can place it, let's place it above the region borders. So now we need to bring out text tool here, and we click and let's write Wales. Oh, where's my text? Let's check. Ah, okay, the fill is green. Let's make it a black fill instead. Now we have text. Awesome. We can drag this text to wherever we want. I want it there, but I do want another font. So we select the text tool again. And let's see, I want a fabric font. Very nice. My fans might recognize this as the Imperial Diplomacy font. And I wanted to pop it a bit, so I want white borders on this. So I'll select white stroke. Awesome. So this is the first element that we will use a lot. Next up, I'd like a supply center in this region. Of course, there's a lot of different designs for supply centers, but I will show you how to create the design I use for Imperial Diplomacy and such. So let's create a layer, we call it supply centers. And that is pretty good. So to create the supply center, I will use the Ellipse Tool. And I will draw a small circle. Remember, when you hold down Control, you create circles. And I want circle. So let's place down this circle. And I want to have a black outline. And for now, no fill. So now I have one circle. Very nice. It might stick out and it doesn't look perfect. We could just, if we wanna, be happy right here. Have this be a center. In some maps I just have this as a design and I think that's pretty pretty. But let's advance the concept a bit and let's add that central dot. So I will duplicate this object by pressing Ctrl D, and I will grab these handles while holding Ctrl and Shift to resize from center while keeping proportions. And I will select a nice size it's worth to note that it will correct the stroke width after this. If you do not want it to do that, you want it to scale the stroke width as well, you can press this button, and when you scale it down, the line will remain thinner. But I like this setting in general. Okay, so very nice. And then I want this centerpiece to be, let's say, white, because this is a neutral center. I often recommend having this as the order. I just play around with it, you'll understand it later. This is the standard I'm using though. So we now have these two circles. I actually want this to be a bit smaller. There we go. So if we now try to move it, we have a problem, they're not connected, yep. So we need to select both, remember, right click, group. Now we have a center that we can move. Awesome. So now if we want to recolor this and just like one of these elements, we can check the group and select the specific element that we want to edit. Let's say we want the outer circle to have a different color, for example. We can edit that. Okay, last thing I will show you guys how to do is a unit design. This is pretty similar to designing the supply centers, but I will make a very classic Imperial Diplomacy army because I like that design. I often use armies as hexagons, which I use the polygon tool for. I select this option, select 6 corners, and I draw the hexagon. I hold Control to snap the angle. Let's do that, and I usually make this first object the color of the power and the white. Then I duplicate this object, and I remove the fill and make the stroke black. And now I resize it. I hold Control and Shift while I do this. And we can get a nice look going. Awesome, now we have a very cool army. I'll select both objects and I'll group. Now we have an army that we can move around. Awesome, we're starting to learn some basic tricks here. And now you just have to repeat these processes pretty much, and you can make a map. I've introduced you to a lot of tools in this video, and I recommend just playing around with all of them while making your first variant, and you will slowly but surely learn the software. I think for now I'm done with graphics. I'll likely make shorter videos in the future on how to use Inkscape in more detailed use, and also make videos discussing like visuals and color selection and all of those nice stuffs, because there's still stuff I want to go over, but this video is long enough. So, thank you for joining in. If you're still here, wow. And I'll see you in the next one.